Welcome to All Villa, No Filler. Please subscribe to the show. Aston Villa play Everton at the brand new Hill Dickinson Stadium on Saturday with our old friend Jack Grealish looking very sharp. To talk about that, I'm joined by Matt Jones from the Blue Room podcast and Liverpool Echo newspaper. Matt, good to speak with you again. How are you feeling about the game this Saturday?
Yeah, good to speak to you, mate. I'm just excited. I'm just enjoying it all at the moment. Obviously, I think going into this summer, there's a lot of apprehension about what the squad would look like, how we'd feel leaving Goodison and starting life at a new ground. Was it all going to be the same? Were we going to sort of stumble as teams have tended to when they've moved to new homes? But barring that game at Leeds on the Monday night, which was just so abysmal, I think a lot of people just written it off as a kind of one-off. It's been pretty encouraging so far. The ground's fantastic. Everyone's loving it. Obviously, we've signed some really good players. One which you mentioned there, but other ones have come in and settled in really well too. And it all seems to be going unerringly positive, which means from an Everton perspective that potential disaster is around the corner somewhere. But for now, it's been sort of nice because I think over the last few years we've gone into that first international break and forth. It's only been 3 weeks and I'm glad to see the back of these lads already. But the last 10 days or so has been, looking back at highlights of Jack Grealish, looking at goals and Jai score, bits of skill and all that kind of thing. So it's been a nice, pleasing, comforting start to the season for a change.
Yeah, and obviously Grealish is in the few games he's had 4 assists already. He's looking a little bit like the Grealish we all knew and loved at Aston Villa. I mean, what have you made of him so far?
Yeah, he's been magnificent, to be honest. And being brutally honest, earlier in the summer when this was mentioned as a prospect for Everton, I was kind of against it because I hadn't seen loads of him at City, but I'd seen a lot of videos of him on social media out on the Ale. I read about his injuries and read about his salary, and I was kind of worried it would be Everton repeating the mistakes of the past where they signed players who were maybe the wrong side of the hill, who were coming down past the peak years, who maybe didn't have quite the motivation anymore, having been a top club. And obviously, it being on loan was made it a little bit different, but the £250,000 a week or whatever he's on, did make me wince a little bit. But since he's come in so far, and I appreciated his early days, it's been fantastic. I said earlier in the week on one of our shows, for us, after the last few years, it's like being able to see colour again in regards to having a really talented technical footballer on your team who just makes the game look so straightforward. And we've gone from having in the last couple of years, all due respect to players like Jack Harrison and Jesper Lindstrom who are grafters and will work the backsides off of the team, but you compare Grealish and Jai on the flanks to those two, and it's night and day. The quality uplift's been fantastic, and he seems to be really enjoying it. And it's one of those where I think at Villa, maybe similar stature of club to Everton, maybe kind of being that big fish in a bit of a smaller pond really suits him. He seems like a bit of a king of the underdogs. He seems to kind of relish the working class fan base and the way in which the supporters have kind of taken to him as that as well. So yeah, all good so far. Obviously, he's only had 2 starts in the Premier League, but we are all starting to get carried away. And the amount of, even though he's on loan, the amount of kids I've seen around the city, around on match days with Grealish 18 on the back of the shirt is fantastic. Because we've not had a play like that for a while. I think every young lad or a young girl, you want to run out and get the name on the back of your shirt. It's been grafters and cloggers and lads who can head set pieces in, but he's a bit different, obviously.
Yeah, he's a very, very special player, and if he shows any of the sort of ability that he did at Aston Villa, then at Everton he'll very quickly become a hero at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. I still have to get used to not saying Goodison. And I always kind of felt at City as well. I think I said this before he went there, and I think a lot of Villa fans felt it was that when he went to City, he'd become part of a system that it doesn't necessarily lend itself to his better expressing his talents. Whereas I think if he'd gone to, let's say, Alex Ferguson's Man United back in the day and been a bit of a talisman in that sort of a system, then he maybe would have worked out. But it worked at City, but it's just not been that player. And so to see him at Everton being liberated, there is a part of me that's like, hopefully not this Saturday, of course, but a part of me that kind of, is overjoyed to see him back playing how he used to. But one other player that's really caught my eye at Everton in the last year or two, and the one who I actually have in my head, I think is just going to score against us, Iliman Ndiaye. How good is he?
He's very, very fun to watch. And I think with that fun, there's been obviously a lot of productivity as well. So I think since he signed for Everton last season. He's now scored 11 Premier League goals. So, in the space of about 30 games, which for a player that for large parts of last season was playing in a Sean Dyche Everton side that was very much focused on defensive football, is a good achievement in that sense. And I think the way in which he's being used, having signed Grealish, is going to be really interesting because Grealish is obviously very much plays on the left, doesn't he, or plays as a number 10. I think he said he doesn't really like playing on the right. So I think when he came in, we all kind of thought, well, Njai's going to get moved over to the right. And, what's the logic of potentially moving your best outfield player from where he's been playing really well into a position where he might not play very well was kind of questioned a little bit. But since he's gone out there, Njai, he scored 2 goals in 2 games. And I think whilst the bits of skill you see from him and the quick turns and the quick feet are the kind of things that go viral, I think with Njai a lot of the time, like those things don't really lead to anywhere. I think there's one thing with him that maybe lets him down a little bit. It's his passing and his way to passing. He's never quite been able to get that right. But the other side, which maybe doesn't get talked about enough, I think, is that he's got that kind of forwards instinct, even though he plays out wide. So he gets in the box to get on the end of chances. He can finish well with both feet. So he's a real all-round player. I think you can see that he, is based on the way he plays, his progression is not like the traditional route. Obviously, he played non-league football for a little bit. He's been at, played at Sheffield United, went to Marseille, and has obviously come back to English football now. But he's really versatile, really hard-working, really popular with the supporters. And so far, him going over to the right-hand side looks like it's kind of going to work relatively well. But I think you'll see a lot more of him popping up in the box to finish off moves and create chances, as opposed to dashing in from the left-hand side and create and dribbling and taking players on and having those little skillful moments that go viral.
Yeah, a fascinating player because I've got a friend of mine who has been on this podcast before. I play with him for Aston Villa and the Lions, a social group, and he played against Njai on a park pitch in London many years ago when Njai was in between clubs trying to find any kind of fitness as well. So what a story for him to get all the way up to the Premier League and be such a star. I kind of wish Villa had gone from a few years ago, actually. But obviously we've touched on it as well. The Hill Dickinson Stadium, it's hilarious for me to say because one of my best friends in life is called Phil Dickinson. So we just can't get our heads around this. I mean, just looking at it on TV, it looks absolutely outstanding as a stadium. The atmosphere looks brilliant. I mean, how are you taking to it?
Yeah, I mean, I've loved it so far. I think people who aren't familiar with the geography of Liverpool, the new ground's about 20 minutes walk from the city centre. So people can still drink in the place they've drank in, and match day routines for people who go into town aren't necessarily that different. And as you walk from town north towards the docks, you can just kind of see it and appearing. And I think one of the things that maybe people who've might have gone past it on the train, or people may have seen it on the telly, is that the scale of it is so much bigger than you actually realise when you see those pictures. Like the stand behind the goal is so steep. That's where I'm sitting now, and I'm kind of worried about when we get that first Derby goal or last minute winner, how it's going to kind of play out, because it's it is so sharp. And I think the design of it has been really something you can tell they thought about, because we all know what West Ham have been like and the issues they've had, and maybe some of the out of the box stadiums we've seen up and down the country, but it does feel unique. It feels like the atmosphere is going to be kept in there. A few little things I imagine that people are still finding the way and finding the match day routines, and I'm sure there's some people who are sat by other people who they might not necessarily get on with, and those relationships that were formed for so many years ago sort of kind of been broken, are going to have to be remade again over time. But that's understandable, isn't it? Thinking of a new ground, but I think ultimately, all of that and the teething problems that you get with any new ground will be very easy, a lot easier to get over if the team keep playing well and scoring goals and getting results ultimately.
And concourses are all great and things like that.
Yeah. So to the south stand, where my new season ticket is, in the upper bit, there's a huge window at the back, and effectively you can see from the high vantage point, you get a view back towards the Liverpool skyline. You've got a bar there and stuff, where place you can stand. So in regards to standing and have a drink at our time or before the game, or keeping the bars open for an hour after the game as well, it's a great spot. probably one of the best spots in the city in terms of views you can have for having a drink and having a chat with your mate. So it's absolutely fantastic, and different selections of food. At Goodison, if you wanted to get a drink, you'd have to go down. We timed this perfectly over the years on 37 minutes, whereas I think some of my mates went down on 37 minutes again at the first half time at the new ground, and they'd have the drinks poured for them by 40. So totally different, completely different to Goodison, but everyone will miss Goodison. Of course, it's still cool that we can go back there with the women's team playing there. They start there on Sunday, but that new ground is just at a different level in regards to so many different things.
Hard not to think it won't help you in future as well, given that revenues and all those sorts of things are so crucial within football nowadays. That looking at Everton's ground and thinking in my head a bit like, if Everton can just get their act together on the pitch in the next year or two, push towards Europe, you never really know. You might be well set to just stay around there for quite a few years.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, well documented the issues the club have had with that kind of thing as well. And I think one of the things that kind of took me back this summer was like the amount of money they spent. I think it's probably gone under the radar a bit, maybe how much Everton has spent. I think it's probably around 140 million this summer. So that's, might not be a lot in the Premier League terms anymore, to be fair, especially, when you look at what our neighbours have done across the park. But that's a lot for a club that, going back 2 years, had 10 points docked for, financial issues and PSR and stuff like that. But I think it speaks to the better situation that the club are in. Obviously, they've got new owners now. As you mentioned there, they will have, they've got a sponsorship deal with Hill Dickinson, which is huge. They'll have revenue coming in. The price of everything will go up. But, with that comes pressure to deliver as well. And I think that's something that Moyes has spoken about since he came back to the club, really. I mean, his first spell, he was often playing stuff down and, talking everything down at times. I think maybe, as all managers do, to kind of talk up the job they're doing themselves. But since he's come back to Everton, he's been quite blunt about wanting to be competitive, wanting to compete, wanting to spend money and getting the team back into Europe. And he's been back. He's got a stadium to do it now. He's got players to do it as well. So here's hoping we can finally put those torrid years we've had behind us and start moving forward again.
And he did it with West Ham, Conference League trophy. I mean, why not dare to dream at Everton, I'd say.
I'd love the Conference League, just like little European trips to far-flung corners of Europe where you can get cheap ale and have a couple of days away. Yeah, sign right up for that.
Yeah, I think you've been away from it for a long time, as Villa were. And since we've gone back to it, it's just been, it's been brilliant. One player, Villa did make a few of their own signings on transfer deadline day as well. And one of those is obviously Liverpool old boy, Harvey Elliott. How do you feel about him turning up? Any concerns?
Do you know what? I've always thought he's quite a good player. And in one of my WhatsApp groups I'm in, actually with a load of Evertonians, I sort of at the start of the summer said, would anyone, because we were linked with Ben Doak for a lot of the summer. Obviously, didn't happen, and players going between the two clubs is very rare. But I sort of suggested, would anyone be fancy going and signing Harvey Elliott? I did get shouted down, to be honest, because he's just. Well, this might make him more Liverpool, actually. He's very much like a southern lad. He's a Cockney, but he's obviously a Liverpool fan, because why wouldn't you be? He's very much a cop-out, Harvey Elliott. So I think it wouldn't have really worked at Everton. But I've always kind of liked him as a player. He's had a few injury issues, hasn't he, down the years, which I think can maybe help his development back a bit. But he's one of those that you look at how old he is. I mean, what is he, 21, 22?
22, yeah.
Yeah, so he feels like he's been on the scene for ages. I remember, I think he made his first competitive start in the FA Cup against Everton when Liverpool played all their children and still beat us 1-0. I kind of looked at him that day and thought, oh God, there's another young lad they've got who's going to terrorise us for the next 15 years or whatever it is. But it's just not, they've got ridiculous players, haven't they, there? So it's one of those where, as much as managers clearly like them at times, and he seems like a versatile pro, it's not quite worked out for him. But yeah, Villa have got loads of good players. I was watching a bit of the England game last night, and you forget about players like Rodgers and those two potentially being brought into the attack, and alongside Watkins, who obviously always scores against us. There's something to be wary of, but it's one of them. I'm feeling relatively good about Everton at the moment, and as much as in the past, I might have sunk back into that mindset of, Villa haven't scored yet, Villa haven't won yet, time for Everton. Obviously, we know what's going to happen at the weekend. I'm trying to embrace the new era with the new ground, new owners, and try and be a bit more positive about things.
You sound so like a Villa fan. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, Villa, that's a serious team when you look at the potential lineup, the good start to the weekend. And I'm sure you guys are feeling very down in the dumps about things. Like, trying to put myself in your position, I'll be thinking, we're playing terrible, we're not scoring, and, our hometown hero is going to essentially add to the misery at the weekend. But I think if you take a step back from it, there's some serious players there, and obviously an excellent manager. I think it's just a matter of time really before things turn around for you guys. Hopefully it's not on Saturday, of course, but with that squad and that quality, it's inevitable the thing is going to start picking up again soon.
Yeah, I think so. I think Everton Villa's always it tends to be a really good fixture. As in, obviously for Villa, since we've won a lot recently, we seem to be the only club in the world we seem to have a good record against. But it just tends to be a good ding dong game as it has been over the decades. And I think this Saturday, hopefully, it kind of is that again. And because I think Villa do just need sort of something at the moment. It felt like a very difficult summer where we're under kind of UEFA transfer sort of punishment in a way. We could only spend X amount and had to sell more than we could, bring in more money than we could spend and get our wages down. So it's been very, very difficult summer. It just feels like all of that has bled into the early part of this season. And we're kind of hoping that what happened with England, and Matt Cash has scored a couple of goals for Poland away. Tielemans is, captaining Belgium now. Hopefully that lends itself to the players refinding something this international break and coming in on Saturday and maybe turning up and actually things just start to click more again. And maybe, Elliott maybe makes a bit of a difference as well. And I think that's what we're hoping for. But yeah, it's hard not to look at Grealish and Njai and, any other Everton players as well you think are looking good.
Dewsbury Hall's been really good since he came in. Felt like a really sensible signing that. Just obviously, it didn't work out for him at Chelsea. He felt like he played a lot in Europe and in the Cups and did well. It's just, they've got so many players, haven't they? And he's just fitted in straight away. Obviously tying down Idrissa Gueye was really important. He was our player of the year last year. Feels like it's a long time ago that Everton signed up in Villa, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He's been so good for us down the years. I think the only selection thing for us really at the weekend is if Branthwaite's going to be back. I think he's been back in training over the break. Obviously, he's missed the first 3 games. And defensively, we've not looked quite on it yet. I think Tarkowski and Keane are a funny partnership because I think Keane gets maligned, but when the two of them play together, he tends to be the better player of the two. But when Tarkowski's next to Branthwaite, he just goes up another level. So if they can get Branthwaite back in the team, that'll be a big boost. But I think there's a few issues at left back as well with Mikalenko picked up an injury during the break. They haven't really got a right back. That's probably the one issue that they had over the summer. Unless you're going to play Seamus Coleman there, God bless him. Still trundling up the line. So there's a few selection issues at the back, but I think the issue they've had down the years is that defensively they've been all right, but they haven't really had enough firepower to get them out of trouble at times. But they seem like they might have that now.
Okay, that's interesting. I just think at the moment, Villa are still working it out. I look at Coleman on the back, and I think that's somewhere to probably target if we can. But
it'll be O'Brien at right back.
O'Brien, okay.
Yeah. So Moyes sort of started that experiment in his first game back against Villa at Goodison. Like, he brought O'Brien on for the last 10 minutes and played him at right back, I think. And ever since then, he's kind of kept him there, and the record's been really good. And It's weird of O'Brien because he's 6'6", and you look at him and think, I imagine any winger just think, I'll just knock it past him and be able to just burn around the outside of him. But he's quick without being rapid. He's good on the ball without being technically brilliant, and he's just done quite a steady job there. So I think that's maybe why they've looked at it this summer, and they obviously went for Kenny Tete and didn't get him. But maybe they just thought, O'Brien's doing fine there. It's a good way of getting him in the team. Obviously, another big player. So Moyes is maybe content with him, but he's definitely not natural. He's definitely not a natural fullback by any means.
And just quickly on injuries as well, Aston Villa, Amadou Onana, looks like he's not going to be returning. Looks like he's out. And Boubacar Kamara, touch and go. We'll find out. Hopefully he's fit because we've got 2 absolutely brilliant CDMs, but both of them seem to get injured a lot. So could be McGinn and Tielemans in centre mid, which is a big ask for them over 90 minutes. But we'll see. It's definitely somewhere I think Everton might get the better of us if we don't have a fully fit central area. But dare I ask a score prediction? You're more confident to beat Villa maybe finally, and that who you do?
Well, do you know, I was just looking then. When was the last time Everton beat Villa?
I think
must be a long time ago.
You knocked us out. Yeah, you knocked us out the Carabao Cup 2 years ago at Villa Park, but I think in the league,
I think it was 2016 when Villa got relegated.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, obviously it was a long time ago now. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's sort of a running joke in the Everton fan base about it's basically beat Villa, we go top, and that started when Everton played Villa at Villa Park if it was a Friday night game, probably about 4 years ago now.
Oh, a very memorable game. Yeah.
I think it was your first year back in the league after a while.
Yeah. First win in the league.
We won our first 2 games, and all week everyone was saying, or maybe we'd drawn one and won one. We on 4 points, and all week everyone was saying was beat Villa, go top, beat Villa, go top. And obviously we went there and just completely. I think Andre Gomez's performance that night still probably ranks as the worst I've ever seen from an Everton player. But people have been sort of like doing that joke again this week about beat Villa and we could go top on Saturday. So it feels like we're at the start of a new era, new ground, and once and for all exercising this saying that's been doing the rounds now for a number of years. I'm going to back Everton to win 2-1. Like Watkins will score because he always scores against us, obviously. But I think Everton have got enough going the other way to potentially sneak this one. But I'm expecting Villa to be miles better than they were in that Palace game before the break, certainly.
Yeah, I'd like to think the international break's given us impetus, maybe 1 or 2 new players as well. I think Sancho won't be fit until I'd say he won't be sharp enough. I'm gonna say Grealish and Ndiaye just give us absolute nightmares on Saturday. But I think maybe 2-2 I'll go with.
It's a very 2-2 fixture, isn't it? It's been a lot of 2-2s down the years.
Yeah, it's been a high scoring like 3-2-2-2 sort of fixture, isn't it? Going all the way back to that famous 3-2 with Ashley Young in the last minute. I'm sorry to remind you of that, but it was every Villa fan remembers that moment where they
think about it every day, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, Matt, it's been absolutely brilliant to chat to you. I always love chatting to you about Everton and football more generally. But for those who don't know, where can we find you and your work online?
Yeah, so at MattJFootball on Twitter, on Instagram as well. I'm trying to use that a bit more. If Villa fans want to listen to an instant podcast after the game on Saturday, it'll be very Everton biased and partisan. But just type in The Blue Room on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts, and it'll be us in the pub talking all things football. So some of our former players might be getting a few stinging words said about them, but it tends to be an relatively analytical, composed analysis of the game. So those places, MattJFootball on Twitter and The Blue Room on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on, Matt.